now it's time for us to listen to Honorable Rimande Shawolu Kwewum. I don't know if he is in the room here or on the other side. He is a member of the House of Representatives representing Donga Osa Takum special area in Taraba State. And I remember Mr. Williams saying reduce the salaries of political office holders. I don't know if you heard that and if he has any comment to that coming on to his speech, but he'll be speaking on the topic, reviewing the operation of the Extant Oil and Gas Free Zone Authority, and especially looking at the act of cap on 05 LFN 2010 and its implication for the oil and gas business in Nigeria. So if you're on, sir, the floor is yours. If not, we would want to skedaddle because we do not have a lot of time on our hands.
All right, thank you very much for inviting me to this program. I actually, when I was asked to speak, I looked at the whole issue and I decided to take a broader view of the situation, because I think most of the time we have buried ourselves in details and we forget the important things that make countries or systems work. From the contributions of our friend from Netherlands, the Professor Otomi and the Reverend Father, you realize very quickly that there are very important issues that can make things work, systems work, and we have forgotten about them. And I just want to call our attention to them, because I think if we unlock that key, we might be able to understand where we are in this country. In the first place, the examples that have been given of states that have been successful, of economies that are working, including those in Europe, the United States, European countries. You are talking about the Asian tigers. You talk about even the communist blocs, the Chinese economy, and even that of the Soviet Union. One thing that is very clear from these countries is the fact that states are working, states are functioning, systems are functioning. Whatever has been achieved in those countries, in my own opinion, is a result of the creation of a stable state that has successfully received the allegiance of its citizens. The state usually was, the state we know in history was created to, came about, if you look at the Hobbesian theories or all the theories about the formation of states, the state existed for all, and all existed to make the systems work. If you check the United States, for instance, you realize that in European countries, even the communist countries, there are many things that happen in this country that don't happen anywhere in other parts of the world that have developed. If you look at the country today, you come to the inevitable conclusion that the state, the Nigerian state, some people say has been marginalized, but I think what I want to say is that the state has receded to such an extent that we now have other non-stakeholders, very violent non-stakeholders that were in small numbers before, that have taken over perhaps a greater proportion of the territory of Nigeria. Boko Haram controls most of Borno, Yobe, parts of Adamawa state. Fulani herdsmen control a very large chunk, if not if not a more important or wider territory in the central or the central states of Nigeria, to the extent that we're very likely to have serious problems, food challenges in the coming year, because farmers cannot go to farm. There are some places that farmers have to get permission from bandits to go to their farms. And today we also have the so-called bandits that have taken over the Northwest. Before we used to hear about kidnapping being things that were taking place in the Niger Delta. Now kidnappings are in all parts of the country. If you go to places like not just Katsina and Zamfara, where they can go and requisition you to take your wife or your daughter for 1 week and then bring her back. We have places like Taraba State today where they go to knock on your door and they ask you that they want to take you until certain ransom is paid. And as a result of these problems, we're now having a rapid urbanization in Nigeria. I've forgotten the percentage, greater than we have ever seen before. And these people that are running into the urban cities are not going into areas that are governed, areas that have water, areas that have layouts. They are going to build their shacks and they are living there. And so you are now going to have, a time will come that you are going to have a manifestation of urban protest, the type that we have never had in the history of Nigeria. So how do all these things reflect on business? As far as I'm concerned, we have a situation today where there's opaqueness. Nobody understands very clearly what is happening in the oil and gas industry. Nobody understands what is happening in government. Nobody understands or really gets to know what is happening in any sector of our economy. For instance, in the oil and gas industry, we don't know how much oil we produce. We don't know what value we get from the oil. I'm aware that it is what the oil producing companies say they have produced that we accept. We don't know what we are producing. And of course, the oil industry in particular has become a source of political tension in Nigeria because of the issue of issuance of licenses, employment into industry. Today, we are having a situation where the majority of people who hold management positions and control the oil sector in Nigeria, the official regulatory oil sector, don't come from the oil producing areas completely. And of course, we have a novel case that has been filed in the courts today asking the government that what government is doing is not correct. And then we have issues of divergent and contradictory policies and programs. Today, I don't know, when I was in the 80s, when I graduated from the university, we were told that there was oil subsidy. And since Babangida's time, 1986, when I was a journalist at the Standard newspaper in Jos, they have been removing oil subsidy. As a legislator today, I don't know whether there is still oil subsidy. I don't know what they are removing. I don't know what they are leaving. And I believe that I'm enlightened enough to know that I'm among the people that should know. But today, we don't really know what we have. Because under President Jonathan, oil subsidies were brought to the parliament for appropriation. In the last 5 years, the subsidy is taken out before a declaration is made to on the revenue that has been collected. So NNPC pays subsidy that it wants to pay without parliamentary approval, and I don't think anybody really knows how much they are paying. If you look at the oil industry too, you will discover that there's a general lack of capacity and ability of Nigerians to participate in that industry, of us to monitor, and of us to understand what is happening in that environment. And therefore, we have a situation today where we have increasing economic and environmental wars in the areas where oil is being produced. Niger Delta, during the colonial era, one of the reasons why, by the way, I'm from Taraba State, I'm not from the Niger Delta. Yes. One of the reasons why NDDC was formed was that government looked at some reports and discovered that the poverty level in the Niger Delta under the colonial rule was was higher than the average national poverty level. And so there was a need to do something specifically to develop and eradicate and alleviate poverty in the Niger Delta areas. Now we've had the OMPADE, we've had the NDDC, but today you really wonder whether there has been any change in the Niger Delta area in terms of the eradication of poverty. I like what the Reverend Father said. If you go to Port Harcourt, we have soot dropping from the sky into people's homes, roofs. You have to paint your house within a shorter period because of that. So we have individual wealth increasing. We're hearing, if you look at the investigation going on in the National Assembly today, you wonder really what is happening. And there's an increasing disconnect between the people the people in the communities that bear the oil production companies and the federal government. And so why are we really, we should put it, I want to ask. Well, I want to correct something that our friend from Netherlands said. The United States president receives an annual salary of $400,000. The Nigerian president receives a salary of 14 million naira. That is about, at today's exchange rate, $17,680. The Nigerian governors receive 11,540, 11,540,000 naira, equivalent of 14,500 US dollars. But that raises the main issue that I think we are running away from. What is the main issue? Today, the people are not free in Nigeria. I don't know how to explain it. We don't control the electoral system. We don't determine who comes. I dare say, I want to disprove me that Nigerians who did not voluntarily choose President Obasanjo to become the first president after the military. It was dictated by the Americans and Europe, who argued at that time that it was better to have a former military person come in so that the military don't have a shock, because if they had a shock, that they were completely out of power, they were going to strike again. So we now created a system. We now have a system that we hold elections. All of us in this room know today that votes don't count and you don't determine who goes into office. And it's far worse today that there are some parts of the country supposedly ruled by bandits, controlled by outlaws, that bring higher votes than areas where there's peace, where people are going about their duties freely. Look at the last 2019 election. Yobe State, ordinarily with a lower population than Oyo State or Rivers State, or even Plateau State or Benue State, gave the APC government, for instance, 690,000 votes. Borno State, where the headquarters of Boko Haram, where we know that most people have fled from their homes, where we know on the day of election, there were 6 explosions, brought 900,000 votes. And so increasingly, people do not even control the process of people that get into power. And it is therefore inconceivable that the people who don't control how their leaders come into power will be able to control, will be able to influence things that those governments or those people in governance do. And that brings me to the issue, which I said I'll talk about, the issue of corruption. The money that the leadership, that I spoke earlier about the opaqueness of the Nigerian system, that we don't know what is happening in government, we don't know what is happening in our churches, largely, we don't know what is happening in our community, in every sector of the economy. And therefore, things that other people in other parts of the world take for granted, for instance, transparency, we don't have that in the country. There's a book, I've forgotten the title, that I wrote something. I'll go back to Netherlands.
Just to come in here, sorry to interrupt you because of time. We're just we're running short of time. I know what you have talked about, corruption and its outlook on Nigeria and its business as a whole. But just in a few words, how does this affect, or what is its implication for oil and gas business in Nigeria? Because we're looking really how these forestalls, or rather looks creating a larger economy using the OGFZA.
That is the point I'm making, that until the people take back their position, take back their freedom to control things, everything that we're talking about, including the fine points that Professor Tommy talked about, will not be implemented. If you look at our laws, our electoral laws, the NDDC Act, if you look at the OGF Act, there is nothing basically wrong with them. Because of corruption, because of the opaqueness of our system, nobody is ready to implement any law. Nobody is willing to hold anybody to account. And until, for those who do basic business management, anything that you don't supervise never gets done properly or the way you want it to be done. And the people are disconnected from government. They are not controlling the government. Things that happened in 1983, I was a student. There was increase of bread, price of bread in Sudan by 1 kobo or so. The people in Sudan rose and overthrew the government. We had austerity measures. Things got far worse. Nigerians were waiting for a savior to come from somewhere to change the situation. My conclusion is that until we clean up our electoral system, until the people wake up, until we decide to take our destiny into our hands, everything that we're talking about remains theory. Nothing is going to change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was a fine finish there by Honorable Rimande Shawulu Kwewum, who is representing, of course, Donga Usa Takum, a special area in Taraba State. And he's also a journalist. I remember reading his book, The Other Side, which was a selection of news articles and other features. Well done, sir. And you said something critical. You've talked about the people oversighting the government, making sure that their voices count. And again, implementation is an issue and not just the creation of the law, which is very paramount there. Thank you so much, Honorable. It's good to have you on that conversation.